Not to be outdone, let's look at East Asia. Now, the red bars are oil import volumes, all the way on the right. The green bars are oil export volumes, all the way on the left. Convenient 7,000 miles apart. What happens when there are shortages of Russian crude, Iranian crude, or Saudi crude, and Saudi crude? Northeast Asia is at the very end of the global supply chain, and any shortages felt anywhere in the world are borne in their near entirety by Northeast Asia, because everyone else can take what they want along the way. So if you are Japanese or Korean or Taiwanese or Chinese, your only solution is to take your navy, sail it to the Persian Gulf, pick sides in a Middle Eastern knife fight, and then physically escort the crude home, because there's not going to be enough for everybody. Now, as we all know, nothing could go wrong here, because the Japanese, Koreans, and Chinese and Taiwanese have a centuries-long history of brotherly love and cooperation, and they're very good at sharing. But imagine what happens the first time one Northeast Asian Navy vessel shoots at one tanker. God forbid they capture it or sink it. Think of what that will do to the cost of transport. Go through the roof. Think of how the global supply chain system has evolved since Bretton Woods came in. It used to be that you'd have these massive industrial conglomerate sites where everything was built and fabricated and assembled and then shipped out as a final product. Not anymore. Now, every single piece of that process has been stripped out and outsourced to whatever facility in whatever country can do it most effectively. It's not so much that the tires are from one facility and the engine blocks from another. It's like the ball bearings are from one place and the spark plugs are from another. Thousands of pieces from most industrial inputs. You raise the cost of transport by 10%, God forbid you triple it, half of those suddenly are no longer viable. We're on the edge of being in a world where input and production and demand don't just need to be physically guarded, they need to be co-located. And the only place in the world where that happens is North America. You guys talk about PET, some of you call it Pete, but for purposes of this presentation, that name is taken already. If you have a naphtha shortage, if you have problems with transport, things look fantastic for recycling, right? I mean, look at that. You got the bulk, over 1/3 of the world's PET is produced in East Asia, China and Korea specifically. And if they can't get the input for the oil, they can't get the naphtha, they can't get the plastic. You're looking at oil prices in the rest of the world being roughly 4 times what they are here. Because here we've got a sequestered system, there they're dependent on long-haul transport. That's both wondrous and disastrous for you folks. Wondrous in that the cost of global plastic is going to skyrocket, and selling into that market is brilliant. Disastrous in that the one country that is an exception to that is the one that you operate in. And naphtha costs here will be lower than everywhere else. And there's one other horrible complication you need to start taking into consideration, and that's natural gas. This is what I like to call the checkbook map, because everybody who has a light on that map has a checkbook. Now, there are 3 population centers worth drawing attention to. First, you've got the booming disco capital of Bismarck, North Dakota. In the center, the cultural mecca of Midland, Texas. And down south, the stone-cold, boring urban corridor of Austin, San Antonio, where I live. People live there, they have lights. What are these? These are the shale fields. The Barnett up north, excuse me, the Bakken up north, the Permian in the middle, and the Eagle Ford down south. Why are they lit up? No one lives there. I mean, western North Dakota, really? No. They're shale flares. It's all about transport. People are after the oil because oil's easy to move. It's a liquid. It'll stay put if you want it to. You can put it into a tanker. You can put it into your pocket, into a trunk, into a bucket, whatever you want. Natural gas isn't. It's a gas. And you need a pressurized collection system, a pressurized transport system, and a pressurized use system. And unless you have that entire system in place on day one, you don't have a natural gas industry. And so we have to flare. We have the world's most advanced and flexible natural gas transport system here in the United States, but we still have to flare volumes that you can see from space. Think about what that means for you. Up to 40% of the natural gas we use in this country is a waste product. It's sold into the system at zero. Natural gas has not until recently been used in the plastic industry in large volume because of cost. Well, that cost issue is now gone. There are $900 billion in greenfield investments into natural gas transport and processing that have already been paid for, all of which will be operational by the end of 2020 just in this country, to take advantage of the fact that we can't build use facilities for the natural gas from the shale fields fast enough. The reason that coal has vanished, or is vanishing from the fuel mix, is this. The reason that those flexible plastic containers become so popular is because they're polymers made out of this. The cost for virgin plastic in the United States is going to historical lows, and it will hold there as long as the shale revolution holds. And that, conservatively for oil, is 30 years, and conservatively for natural gas is 75. Sorry. Here are the things that are natural gas intensive. Here are the things that are electricity intensive. The first one on that list, that's $1,500 per family of 4 per year. That's the biggest tax cut that we've seen in the post-World War II era, just because of cheap electricity. And here are the ones that you guys care about, almost at the tops of the list. These are industries where we were seeing massive build-out in productive capacity, and that is your primary competitor, not China. Forget China. It's right here at home. Yeah, that made the room quiet. Okay, the story with wood pulp is a little bit different. Now, you've got 3 primary producing zones for wood pulp. North America, nothing's really changing there. It might be a slow drop-off just simply because of labor costs. Then you've got South America, where Brazil is far and away #1, and Southeast Asia, which is the big up-and-comer. Here's the problem. While Europe is going to destabilize, and East Asia is going to destabilize, and the Middle East is going to destabilize, these are really the only 3 parts of the planet that aren't. So the virgin inputs don't see much of a change in their cost structure, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, where you don't have to worry about tanker wars. That's a mixed bag, because they're also going to be stable growing markets. First and most importantly, in my opinion, is Southeast Asia. Now, the green on this map are tropical zones. The lighter green is where you are lucky enough to get a dry season. Now, unlike the United States, where our background is in row crop agriculture and where you can invest in production to get a combine and move up the technical value-added chain, you can't do that in tropical agriculture. In a word, tropical agriculture sucks. Because each pineapple has to be planted by hand. Each pineapple has to be harvested by hand and then moved in a box one at a time. That's pretty much standard for all tropical output. So, if you work in tropical agriculture, and you know there's no upward mobility, and you know there's no room to increase your personal income, everybody comes to the same conclusion: get the hell out. And so Southeast Asia has the densest urban footprint in the world, more than China. Over half their population now lives in their major cities. And because they're separated by tropics and mountains and islands, Southeast Asia has no history of military conflict like Northeast Asia or Northern Europe. This is an area where you can have local supply chains and local security and local growth without having to worry about any of the heartburn. This means that there's going to be more wood pulp coming from this area, but it also means that this is probably the fastest growing demographic for plastics and paper consumption. So, mixed bag. And they're young. Half of them are under 30.
Bos, আমরা বাইরে বানাতে ছাড়েন কি সারমু ওটা ছাইরা দেন পানি সারমু ছাইরা দেন ও ছাইরা দিছিল ছাইরা দাও আইতো সারছেন